We'll now move to House Bill 317, Complaints Against Law Enforcement and Correctional Officers by Representative Fabricio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 317 strengthens due process protections for law enforcement officers and correctional officers. It requires all complaints to be in writing and signed under oath, preventing anonymous accusations when a police officer is being interrogated. Officers must receive a copy of the complaint and supporting evidence before any interrogation or disciplinary action. Additionally, if an investigation results in no discipline, it cannot be included in the officer's personnel file or used to deny promotions or commendations. Members, this is it's a good bill. It supports police officers and corrections officers, the folks who actually respond to the 911 calls, the folks who do the work. This is unfortunately a contested bill, and you will likely hear some opposing opinions today. But let me tell you, this bill, this or similar policies to what we're talking about here today is already implemented in various agencies throughout the state. And I was told that by the General Counsel for the police chiefs. This policy has been implemented in Texas and seems to be working fine. And this policy is similar to policy that was passed with regard to elected officials, meaning if there is a complaint against an elected official, that complaint needs to be in writing and signed and provided to the elected official so that you don't get frivolous, false complaints just there to muck things up. And it would be, it's interesting to note that that is the standard that's applied to the actual elected sheriffs. So it's a good bill. It ensures fairness while maintaining accountability, and I respectfully ask for your support. And please note that the idea behind this bill is also what's good for the goose is good for the gander. This is a good back to blue bill, and I ask for your support. Mr. Chair, that is the bill.
Haven't heard the explanation, members, or do we have any questions? Any questions? Rep. Bracy Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if we recall, and I have a series of questions, Mr. Chair, if you will allow me. If we recall, last year the legislature severely limited the ability of the civilian review boards to have an opinion on officer misconduct. So that, if I remember correctly, that removed an important layer of community oversight. Now this bill goes a step further by my understanding, scrubbing the investigative files from personnel records, even when complaints are substantiated but don't result in formal discipline. So given all of that, that oversight from both the public and internal records is being stripped away, how does the sponsor expect law enforcement agencies to identify and address patterns of misconduct before they escalate and prevent bad actors from putting both civilians and fellow officers in harm's way?
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the question. The bill doesn't implicate anything about what happens within the internal affairs organization of the police agency. The bill does not stop an anonymous complaint to be taken. It just says that when the interrogation is to take place, that they need to have a sworn statement at that time to be provided for the officer, because the officer deserves the right to know who's complaining against them.
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what is the policy justification for ignoring the professional judgment of Florida's top law enforcement leaders who believe this bill weakens internal accountability?
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've spoken to the police chiefs in my part of the state who support the bill.
Follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And please correct me if I'm incorrect for the sponsor, but it's my understanding that the Florida Sheriff's Association and the Florida Police Chiefs Association have concerns with this bill. So I would ask that the sponsor explain why they're moving forward with this bill when both of those two entities who oversee officer conduct don't support it.
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And we get to make the policy here in Tallahassee. And I have spoken with the chiefs and the sheriffs extensively in my office. I've asked them repeatedly, I've begged them to provide me language that they would find acceptable. They have not provided me any. I've continuously worked with them. I've looked at policy in other states. I've spoken to other police chiefs that aren't necessarily part of a lobbying organization. and we found that this is good policy. This policy has been implemented in police agencies throughout the state, and it's working just fine. It's not an end of the world scenario like it's being suggested, like you'll hear later today when you hear their testimony. And I'll ask that everyone keep in mind what the bill actually does. And what the bill does is that it requires that at the interrogation, that statement be provided so the police officer know what's going on. It does not preclude in any which way, and I challenge you, Representative Bracy Davis, to show me where in the bill it says that the police agency is not allowed to investigate any of these allegations.
One more follow-up, then we're going to move on to the next.
Certainly, and it's not my job. This is not my bill, it's yours. So, but I thank you, Mr. Chair. What safeguards are in place to protect whistleblowers? Because that's really my concern. What safeguards are in place to protect whistleblowers or internal officers who wish to report misconduct anonymously or confidentially?
Rep. Fabricio.
That's an interesting, I would love, thank you for the question. I would love to see language proposed with regard to that. But what I'll tell you is that this bill protects the men in blue who come and answer 911 calls, the men in blue who are subject to attack, the men in blue that we need to hire in Florida. This is a good police bill. Thank you.
Ranking Member Gottlieb.
Thank you, Chair. Representative Fabricio, I think we all support law enforcement officers, but there is a concern here as it relates to not allowing anonymous complaints. So I want to see if there's any potential carve-out for that for somebody that's in the care, custody, and control of law enforcement who wants to complain about law enforcement and is concerned about retribution. You know, whether their complaint is coming from the inmate themselves or from a family member. Is there anything that, well, what's the reason for it being anonymous? Let's start there, if you would.
You're recognized.
Not allowing anonymous. My apologies, Chair. My apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I disagree with the premise of your question to begin with, because there is nothing in the language of the bill, Rep. Gottlieb, and I'd ask you to show me where in the bill, the actual language of the bill, it says that an anonymous complaint cannot be taken.
Sure. Let me get back to the, oh, I'm sorry.
You're recognized to look and talk.
Okay.
I would ask for a line number where it says anonymous on the bill.
Yes, sir, and unless I'm reading it wrong, it says that lines 108 to 112, a complaint against a law enforcement or correctional officer must be in writing and be signed under oath, in which case it can't be anonymous, because the only way that could be anonymous is under 92.525. Somebody would have to sign anonymously without it being notarized under penalties of perjury. But how are you ever going to hold that person accountable if they're anonymous?
I'm always going to let you respond.
Thank you, Chair. So if we were in court, I'd object to the context that you challenged, because you left out the following words, which say before any interrogation begins. So it doesn't say that they can't take an anonymous complaint. It says that before an interrogation begins, there must be a signed complaint. So it doesn't mean that the police agency can't take a complaint. It doesn't mean that a complaint can't be investigated and verified by other means, but it means before a interrogation occurs with regard to some particular incident, that at that point they must have a complaint signed.
One more follow-up.
Okay, so just for clarification, as I read it, the preceding lines, every law enforcement officer, every law enforcement agency and correctional agency shall establish and put into operation system for receipt investigation, investigation, and determination of complaints. And then you go to 109, a complaint against a law enforcement officer must be in writing or signed under oath. So they can't take it into receipt if it's anonymous, is the way I read that, and I'm concerned about that potential interpretation. I understand what you're saying, but I think that that might perhaps be drafted too broadly, and that an agency might say, we can't take an anonymous complaint into receipt. I'd ask that we discuss that before it hits the floor and try to amend it.
Rep. Fabricio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Rep. Gottlieb, I am absolutely happy to help clarify that. And I had wished that this type of discourse could have occurred with the chiefs or the sheriffs, because I would have absolutely more than happily clarified that language before we got here today.
I'll go to Rep. Andel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Quick question. If someone files an anonymous complaint and it is a valid complaint, how is it treated? Is it investigated? Is it taken serious, or is it dismissed?
You recognize.
Do you mean, thank you, Mr. Chair, do you mean currently or following the bill?
Yes, sir.
Following passage of the bill and being signed into law.
Recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My view is that a police agency is an employer. And under general employment law, there's a cause of action against employers with regard to negligent retention and negligent hiring of a police officer. And I believe that all complaints, regardless, after this bill passes, all complaints still have to be investigated. You can't bury your head in the sand and not investigate any complaint. They have to be. The purpose of this bill is to make sure that that frivolous complaints against police officers are not used against them in the employment process for promotional purposes or other purposes down the road. Because when you get a frivolous complaint, for example, and the issue when we looked at this type of policy with regard to elected officials, let's say that someone's running for office, and let's say that an anonymous complaint is lobbed against them ethics-wise, and then now a mail piece is mailed out on that frivolous, like so-and-so is being investigated for this. Nothing happened. Who did it? Nobody knows. And that's the same thing with police officers. Anonymous, frivolous complaints that are in their police files can be used against them with regard to promotions and other issues, and we want to prevent that. That's the idea. But it's not in any way preventing a 911 call comes in and says Officer Smith did this and that from being investigated. It's not preventing any of those things from occurring. And I frankly take offense to those who suggest that it does. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, no amendments. We do have public testimony. We'll begin with Jennifer Pritt from the Florida Police Chiefs Association. Waving in opposition. Allie McNair with the Florida Sheriff's Association. There you go. Waving in opposition. Sticking together. Lisa Henning with the Florida State Fraternal Order of Police. Waving in support. Jason Wynn with the Gadsden County Sheriff's Office. Waving in opposition. Jim Sniffs, am I pronouncing that right? Sniffen, Florida FOP, wishing to appear. You'll wave in support. Thank you, sir. David Stevens, excuse me, sir. Wishing to appear. Okay. You checked opponent and waving in support. How long has it been since you wrote a ticket? Thank you for being here. Chief Charlie Vasquez, Florida Police Chiefs Association. Good morning, sir. Welcome, and you are recognized. Punch the button there. There you go.
I'm sorry. Chair Brandon, Vice Chair Brant Barnaby, Ranking Member Gottlieb, distinguished members of the committee, I thank you for your service, and I thank you for giving me your time this morning in this important matter, HB 317. My name is Charlie Vasquez. I serve as the Chief of Police of the Tampa International Airport Police Department, and I stand before the honorable members of this committee as the President of the Florida Police Chiefs Association. It is a position which I do not take lightly. The FPCA is one of the largest police chiefs associations in the nation. It is an honor and a privilege to represent the nearly 1,000 executive members of the association. As the nation's premier law enforcement association, we strive to continuously enhance law enforcement professionalism in the great state of Florida. Last month, I reached a milestone in my 30th year in law enforcement, and from my earliest days as a dispatcher, all the way to just before I retired with the Houston Police Department as assistant chief, to the last 8 years as the chief of the Tampa International Airport Police Department, there has been one constant, and that is an increase in professionalism and accountability in the law enforcement profession. The citizens that we serve deserve no less. HB 317, I fear, will stop the increase in professionalism, and accountability, and we may even take a step backward. Because the FPCA is a proponent of professionalism and accountability, the FPCA is an opponent of HB 317. I want to read part of the Code of Ethics of the Florida Police Chiefs Association. And I quote, "Members shall ensure that reports of official misconduct or corruption by public officials are properly investigated and follow current Florida statute." The committee would just indulge me a second, and I'm going to try and make my 3 minutes, I swear, Chair Brandon. In order to understand where we are, we got to understand the history of policing. We've gone through several distinct eras. The political era, which was marked by corruption and brutality and political favors. In the 30s, we came to the Wickersham Commission, and we came to the Reform era, which was marked by professionalism, as viewing police work as a career, education, and the relationships between the public and the police grew distant until we got to about 1980s when we entered the community policing era, and we saw new ways to do policing. We didn't rely on prosecutions and arrest. We relied on partnerships to provide for safety of our public. Then after 9/11, we entered the Homeland Security era, which we all know flooded billions of dollars into local communities and increased staffing in police work. And while not officially in the history books today, it is my belief that we're in the era of police accountability, and we're all better for it. Today's generation of police officers are the best generation of police officers this country's ever known. They're better educated, they're better trained, they're more diverse, and most of all,
Sir, you just hit the 3-minute mark, but I'll let you finish that thought.
Did I really? That quick?
Quick.
Okay. Wow, okay.
Did I mess your thought up?
You did, but that's
Sorry.
okay. I'll get it back. I'll get it back. Yeah, so we stand opposed to it. That was 3 minutes. We stand opposed to this bill. It will not increase accountability. It'll make it more difficult to hold officers accountable when they have serious misconduct.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next, we have Felix Del Rosario, FOP, Lodge 20 President. Good morning, sir, and you're recognized.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Vice Chair. Good morning, committee members. Thank you for hearing this bill. I am Felix de Rosario. I proudly served as president of the City of Miami, and I'm also an active police officer for the City of Miami Police. I want to thank Rep. Fabricio for championing a great bill that is critical piece of legislation, one that is overwhelmingly supported by law enforcement officers across the state. I speak for the fraternal police, over 25,000 members. This bill is not just about process. It is about fairness, integrity, and the protection of those who dedicate their lives to public service. It promotes a balanced, transparent, and accountable system for handling complaints against officers while ensuring that those under investigation are denied their fundamental rights. Too often, officers are subject to prolonged and ambiguous investigations. This legislation helps address those inequities by ensuring that officers have timely access to their complete investigative file, providing safeguards against unfounded or malicious allegations that can have long-lasting effects on an officer's reputation, career, and upholding the principles of due process and equal treatment under the law. It is important to emphasize this bill does not shield bad actors. It is crafted to protect officers who are committed to uphold the law and doing their jobs with honor, ensuring that they are not wrongfully punished due to incomplete investigations or unverified accusations. Officers across our state feel the weight of their responsibilities every day. They run towards danger, they mediate conflicts, and they uphold the law. They deserve a fair system that allows them to defend themselves while accusations arise. That is not exactly what this bill provides. That is exactly what this bill provides. Anyone who opposes this legislation is in effect opposing the right of an officer to defend themselves against allegations, regardless of whether those allegations are true or not. This is not justice. It is not how we should treat those who protect our communities. Moreover, this bill sends a clear message that we support transparency and accountability, but not at the cost of basic fairness. It will not only restore confidence in the investigative process, but also improve our morale within our law enforcement community. And I want to thank everybody for their time and their attention and continued support for our law enforcement officers. I urge you to stand with us. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else in public testimony? Okay, we're now in debate, members. Anyone in debate? Vice Chair Barnaby, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank my friend, Representative Tom Fabricio, for bringing this very good bill. I want to thank the gentleman that just spoke from the Fraternal Order of Police. In the bill summary, members, I believe the bill summary is very clear in letting us know that this bill requires any complaint against a LEO or CO to be made in writing and signed under oath, thus prohibiting, keyword, a person from making an anonymous complaint. And there's no ambiguity there. And again, I thank my friend, Representative Fabricio, for bringing this bill. I urge all my colleagues to be up on this bill. Let's support our men in blue. They are doing an incredible job. And yes, they want to be held accountable, but they are protecting us, the public. And I just take my hat off to every law enforcement officer throughout our entire state. Thank you, thank you, thank you for what you do in keeping us safe. Thank you.
Rep. Bracy Davis, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I feel like I'm in an alternate universe right now, because I hear from this chamber, from this committee, oftentimes that we need to back the blue. And the blue just spoke. And what I wrote down from the police chiefs is this bill will make it more difficult to hold officers accountable when they participate in misconduct. That is a direct quote from the blue. So I'm really, really confused. You know, do we back the blue or do we not? Also, I am concerned about this anonymity. I am concerned about retaliation. I am concerned about retribution. I am concerned about whistleblowers, because let's be clear, bad apples and bad cops do exist. And I always speak from the lens of the people that I serve. I represent a majority-minority district, and let's be clear, there are some folks that have apprehension when it comes to dealing with police officers. So not only do I back the blue, but I also back the black and I back the brown. And when I hear police officers and chiefs and these police organizations tell me, the police chiefs and the Florida Sheriff's Association tell me that this bill will make it more difficult to hold police officers accountable. Why don't we want to hold police officers accountable? Members, vote down on this bill. We're in an alternate universe right now. Vote down on this bill if you back the blue.
Rep. Antal.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm in opposition to this bill for one particular section, and that is dealing with this issue of anonymous complaints. And so I can give you three quick examples where I felt like my life would be in danger, there would be retribution, there would be retaliation if I reported the claim. And so some years ago, I used to drive down Highway 50 at night, and I was about 2 or 3 blocks from the sheriff's station. And on multiple occasions, I'm not talking 2, 3, or 4, the same sheriff deputy stopped me and always claimed that my tag was not registered to my vehicle. My tag read SLEG 39, State Legislator 39. And so I went directly to the sheriff and filed a complaint there, verbal complaint. But again, I was stopped in the same 2 or 3 block area multiple times by the same sheriff deputy. Another complaint, and this goes back to November 2nd, 2018, 2019, about 9:30 in the morning. I'm sitting in a restaurant by myself, And again, two officers, I call them two vagabonds, a black officer, white officer, didn't know it. I thought they were homeless folks. They called me, said, is that your vehicle across the street? I go outside, I look, my vehicle's okay. I look to the left, and the street is blocked off. 2 or 3 police cars, 8 or 9 officers, standing there poised with their hands right above their guns. And again, I feared retribution. So when I did finally write a complaint, which was months later, we don't have any body cam footage. Now, there was 8 to 10 officers there, but nobody had any body cam footage. But I did fear retribution. And then the third example was when the undersheriff, who attended the same church with me, was threatening me over an appropriation in the budget. And so he's leaving voicemail messages, calling me a Judas, quoting scripture, and all that stuff. So when I finally contacted the sheriff and said, hey, I want to file a complaint, I go into my office to get my voicemail messages, where he had left the voicemail messages, and coincidentally, all the voicemail messages are gone. All the message pads where my aides had recorded his messages were gone. So I got a concern about that particular section, but I think I heard you say that you were willing to work on some clarification language to kind of clean it up, to make it better. And I just suggest that you do that, and then perhaps I can support your bill. Thank you.
Rep. Daly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Fabricio, I appreciate our conversation yesterday. I understand your intent, I understand where you're going, and I have committed to vote up on the bill today, so I will do so. But I do share a lot of the concerns that have been raised by some of my colleagues, particularly Representative Gottlieb. So I will, you're a man of your word, you work your bills. My hope is that you will work on some language and clarifying language so that I can be up on the floor. But I'll be up today with the hope that, that those changes occur. Thank you.
Representative Barrero.
Thank you, Chairman. When I think of what this bill aims to do, I'm reminded with a very important part of our Constitution, which is known as the Confrontation Clause, and I'll quote it. It says that in all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to be confronted with the witnesses against him. Now, when investigations are taking place, it hasn't risen to the level of a criminal prosecution, but it could. And when I think about the bill that we just recently passed unanimously about honoring the best of the best among us, I imagine what could happen if somebody who for some personal reason did not like that police officer decided that he was just going to make that person have a bad day and submit an anonymous, baseless complaint against that police officer. What if he accused him of breaking the law? Or what if he accused him of doing something that was untrue? Think about that for 1 second. If he accused him of doing something untrue, because it happens all the time. It could be a city mayor who for some reason doesn't like that police officer's political party affiliation. Or maybe that police officer wasn't on board with campaigning, for that city mayor. There could be some personal affinity that they have or dislike of that police officer. They could submit these anonymous complaints, and when it comes time to addressing whether that honorable police officer should be promoted, you have numerous baseless complaints. And I'm reminded again of what the Constitution purports to do in those situations, or strives to do in those situations, which is to prevent these baseless complaints from being held against somebody wrongfully. And I'm also reminded the fact that the Fraternal Order of Police and the Police Benevolent Association represent the voice of thousands of police officers throughout our state and throughout our counties. Those are the police officers who are asking for us to pass this bill. So for that reason, I'm up on this bill, and I'll be co-sponsoring it.
Ranking Member Gottlieb.
Thank you, Chair. So, members, I think things got perhaps a little heated, and maybe we lost a little context here today. I think it's important to understand that when we come here and we see a bill like this bill is not just about law enforcement. This bill is about the citizenry as well. And so, we have many masters. And in a bill like this, we have the administration, we have the rank and file, the law enforcement officers who are on the street fighting day in and day out, to protect society. and we have the citizens, and each one of us represents approximately 175,000 individuals. And to come here and tell us if we vote no on this product, then we don't back the blue, I really, that's just not true. I only had the time to Google my first session, my first two sessions. House Bill 487, swap medic. I put that law into effect. Lewd and lascivious exhibition, 599, 1107, lewd acts. House Bill 23, panic alarms in public schools, helping law enforcement and doing a bypass. House Bill 103 gave law enforcement officers the ability to issue a subpoena to an out-of-state company and to go to court and fine that company for not responding. So, I've been here, I've supported the blue in and out. I got a bill today, cyber sexual harassment. But when I see, and I hear loud and clear, and especially as Representative Barrero just said it, I get it. We need to have the confrontation clause, but there's got to be a way that somebody can lodge a complaint that is a valid complaint and have it be heard. And I heard Representative Fabricio very clear that unfortunately the opponents of the bill haven't come and talked to him to work on that language. So I spoke to Rep. Fabricio. I'm going to vote down on this bill. I voted up on it before. But I have a legitimate concern here, and I'd like to be able to vote up on it on the floor because I do think that it is a needed bill to protect law enforcement officers, many of which are my friends. I've practiced in this space for 33 years, and I count numerous law enforcement officers, not just as my friends, but as my close friends. But I think that when we look at legislation, we need to land in the right spot for all of those masters that we serve here. And as the bill sits in its current posture, I do think that there's ambiguity at lines 101 to 103 where it says that they have to develop, law enforcement agencies have to develop a receipt for a complaint, but that the complaint must be signed and sworn. So maybe they can receive a complaint that is anonymous, but as it moves through the process or develop a way to protect the person filing the complaint. And then once it gets to the level that it's a true administrative complaint moving through the system or a criminal complaint, obviously that person's name and identity would have to be exposed. So I think it's something that if we dial down the rhetoric and put our heads together, we can really come to a better place on this bill, protect law enforcement, and really make sure that a complaint is valid before it moves to any possibility of harming that law enforcement officer. So thank you.
Representative Cassell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative Gottlieb, you took some of the topics that I wanted to discuss, but Representative Fabricio, you and I are both lawyers in our day jobs. And what I've heard today is we clearly have an ambiguity. And you and I both know what happens in a court of law when we have an ambiguity in the law. It creates confusion, and it creates discourse. And what we have is organizations that, for all intents and purposes, are clearly aligned. Our sheriff's organizations and our FOP have the same mission, to protect and serve the public and protect their law enforcement. And to have these organizations at odds over the language of this bill gives me pause for concern because, if anything, I would expect them to be together on this. So for me, that tells me we've got ambiguities. And we don't want to pass a bill, and you know this better than anyone, that has ambiguity in it, because it just creates confusion and an inability to implement. So I am going to be up today on your bill, but I just ask, and I know that you're going to do this, that you work with these stakeholders with an open mind. I know you are very passionate about this bill. That is very obvious in your presentation and responses to the questions. But I ask that you meet with these stakeholders with an open mind with what they present to you as what their concerns are, because we are all on the same page of making sure people have access to this process and we protect our law enforcement at the same time. So I will be up on your bill. I do express and share some of the same concerns that my colleagues have done, but I know you work really hard in this process. I know you'll get this right. I look forward to seeing it on the floor with all the support from our law enforcement agencies.
Representative Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I voted in favor of this bill during the Criminal Justice Subcommittee. All my children, aunts, and uncles are police officers. And I have loved ones also serving as, as police officers. But today, I needed to speak because I don't want anybody to think, okay, so if she vote like this, she's against the blue, or if she vote like that, she's in favor. So no, I'm 100%, in favor of the good law enforcement. I'm not a lawyer, but I heard the concerns and I know the good heart of Representative Fabricio, and I know that he's going to talk and, with the stakeholders and make arrangements, but I didn't expect police officers here opposing the bill. That's what caught my attention. But today I'm gonna vote no on this bill. Sadly, I did not have the opportunity to talk to Rep. Fabricio, and I don't vote like that, never. I will looking forward to voted yes on the floor. If there is any arrangement and also visit from the stakeholders that are opposing the bills to explain to me what in reality is happening. So thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to vote yes on the floor, but today I'm gonna be a no.
Representative Alvarez.
Thank you, sir. In hearing Representative Anton's story for about the third time, your pain, sir, that has molded your history, I think is valid. I just wanted to look at you and tell you that I understand it. I grew up in Miami, and I actually was very intimidated by the police when I was a kid. And this is I thought they were bullies with badges, just to be honest with you. And I find it ironic that I feed my children when I'm not here on this really big paycheck by actually defending good cops for a living. That's what I do. I don't know if most people realize that. And this process that we are trying to amend I am deeply intimate with it. And I know that representatives find themselves in a very unique spot. You have the chiefs of police and the sheriffs who we all admire and we love. We help get them into office and we seek them out when we talk about law and order. Charlie is not the chief of police of the airport. He's my friend, literally my friend, and he's a fellow veteran, and I admire him very much, and I seek him out for advice a lot. So right now you find yourself in this weird spot. You see the chiefs of police and the sheriffs on one side of an issue, and you see the cop on the ground on another, and you don't know where to find yourself, right? And so you think, oh, wow, that's really bad. But the man who represents 25,000 members from the city of Miami just came up and said, this is our bill. We need your help, representatives, because what ends up happening is we live in a day and age where the warrior society is being diminished, and the pool of people that we seek to hire, cops, firefighters, and soldiers, keeps getting smaller because we tell them we back them, and then we question the manner in which we back them here and make them think we don't have their back. I'm with Representative Gottlieb. The rhetoric here is absolutely too high. It's kind of ridiculous. I can look at Charlie in the eyes and say, brother, I love you, but on this one, I'm standing with your men and women. On this one, I can't be with you. What happens when someone files an anonymous complaint, it triggers a series of events that the police officer cannot recover from. The investigation begins, and then it goes all the way down the line, and then it stays in their jacket for forever. In fact, we tried to stop anonymous complaints coming in from body-worn cameras because of this very same effect. You have a lot of these, and then later on down the line, a cop who has not done nothing wrong because all of them are unfounded, but we have an anonymous complaint, comes in, and that guy seems to be some sort of bad cop, when in reality, it was just someone who had a beef. I literally deal with this on a daily basis. If we're trying to go after bad cops, I'm your guy. No one wants to burn a bad cop more than other cops. You know why? Because they can't take it anymore. They can't take the accusation of every 99% are good cops and we have one bad guy or 0.5 bad guy, and now we're going to burn the building down. How about we try to preserve the building for the 99.5 who always, or 99.9, who always do it right, give them a sense of protection, and then we come and hunt the ones who do it wrong, and we make them an example. In this case, all we're saying is, if you have a complaint against someone, just like if you're going to accuse someone in a court of law, put your face on it. And if you can't put your face and name on it, then it's not worthy of going forward and smearing this person for the rest of their career. When we talk about supporting cops, ladies and gentlemen, what you need to understand is this is a bill that is for the cop, not the sergeant, not the captain, and not the chief. This is for the police officer on the ground who is saying, send me and you have my back. If I do the right thing, you're gonna support me. But now it's, you're gonna question me every 5 seconds when someone comes up with an anonymous complaint. If you have a problem with the cop, put your name on it. Let's get the bad guys out and let's protect the good ones with a level of due process that you would expect for yourself.
Okay, anyone else in debate? Seeing none, Representative Fabricio, you are recognized to close on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank everyone who's come to testify on this bill. I want it to be real clear. I've supported the police since before, long before I came here to this process. And I think all parties that are in this, that are on either side of this bill are good. Both are very good. We need management and we need labor. Members, what I'd suggest is that what you are hearing is a dispute between management and labor. And this is a bill that does support the labor, the men and women with the boots on that are out on the street answering 911 calls. This is a good bill. This will allow us to help hire more police officers, maintain good police officers, and we will root out the bad cops. Members, I ask for your support on this bill. Thank you.
Representative Fabricio, having closed on his bill, Julia, please call the roll on HB 317 and announce the vote.
Representatives Abbott,
Yes.
Albert,
Yes.
Alvarez,
Yes, ma'am.
Anderson,
Yes.
Antone,
No.
Baker,
Yes.
Barnaby,
Yes.
Barrero,
Yes.
Bracy Davis,
No.
Cassell,
Yes.
Chambliss, Daly,
Yes.
Fabricio,
Yes.
Gottlieb,
No.
Coster,
Yes.
Lopez,
No.
Maney,
Yes, ma'am.
Owen,
Yes.
Plaken,
Yes.
Porras is excused, Salzman, Chair Brannon,
Yes.
16 yeas, 4 nays, Mr. Chair.
Show HB 317 reported favorably.
Thank you, committee.
We'll now move to CS